Thank you for joining and welcome to another episode with Azim Sahir, a human capital specialist who has designed this podcast to inspire people to live meaningful lives and to pursue their passion. This is Season 8. In this podcast, Azim gives a laid-back look at the important aspects of life and business through the lens of emotional intelligence. You will learn how emotional intelligence can influence your success in both personal and professional life. You will hear key life lessons and tips from prominent personalities, business leaders, entrepreneurs, EI practitioners, and executive coaches from all over the world. You can also watch the video version of this podcast on his YouTube channel. So sit back, relax with a cup of coffee, and let's get to the show. AI Cafe with Azim.
Workplace culture sets the tone for how employees experience their work environment and directly impacts their engagement, satisfaction, productivity, and overall success. Investing in a positive and inclusive culture benefits both individuals and organizations, fostering harmonious and motivated and thriving workforce. A very warm welcome to the brand new season of AI Cafe with Azim, and I'm your host, Azim Sahir, a human capital specialist, a Lego series play facilitator, ICF certified coach, an emotional intelligence and emotional culture practitioner, of course, a facilitator with Luminary Learning Solution. I'm thrilled to be back for another episode filled with valuable learning. In the next 30 minutes, we'll be embarked on an exciting journey, exploring insightful topic and expanding our knowledge base. So today we are going to talk about, do we really have a toxic work culture? Interesting, is it? Yeah, so I have a fantastic guest joining me to talk about this particular topic, and she's a specialist on workplace culture. So she goes as she's a chief scientist at the Workplace Culture for Culture Partners, including leading research and strategy in best practices for driving results through culture. For 15 years or plus, she has been guiding global national Fortune 100 and other organizations across finance, technology, real estate, and healthcare industry on the path to create intentional culture that accelerate performance. This is a disruptive thought leader on culture transformation that companies need to build organization success. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome Jessica Kriegel, Chief Scientist of Workplace Culture at Culture Partners. Jessica, welcome to the cafe.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Right. So Jessica, once again, thank you very much for spending your valuable 30 minutes of your time to inspire people and talk about some important topic. I've seen you, I've been following you, I've listened to your videos and watched your videos and listened to some of your podcasts, amazing content. Culture is something everybody talks, but I think it's difficult to build or develop. On that note, I'd like to start off this conversation like, how does strong and positive organization culture contribute to the achievement of the strategies and goals and objectives of an organization? What is your thought on that, Jessica?
That's a great question. Our belief is that culture is what drives results, that the two are inexorably linked and that they're not separate. And those who think that culture is something that's about just employee engagement or just about employee satisfaction, they're really missing the full scope of the impact that culture has. And that's one of the biggest challenges with crafting culture, is that everyone has a different definition in their mind when they hear the word culture. And some people think of, ping pong tables in the lobby and happy hours and team building events, and they think that that's culture. And we see culture as the foundation of every organization in their ability to drive results. When we talk to our clients, we don't start by asking them, what is wrong with their culture and what needs to be fixed, we start by asking, what results do you want to achieve? And then what culture would you need to have in order to achieve those results? That's our focus, is in always tying culture to results.
Interesting. And I've read you a couple of articles, and I'm trying to connect that particular the pyramid, results pyramid, into this particular topic. How does it work? Does it connect here?
Yeah, that's exactly how we connect culture to results. The results pyramid, aptly named, is all about how we drive results in business, right? That is the top of the pyramid. It's the goal. And all results are a result of actions, the way that people act and behave in an organization. You know, you as a human capital specialist, you know that it's all about how people act in the workplace. And most leaders understand that, and most leaders spend a lot of their time in those two areas. We need to get a certain result. Let's try and get people to act a certain way so we can get those results. And then they either achieve the results and then they need a new result. And so they go back to trying to figure out new actions that people need to take, or they don't achieve the result and they go back to the actions and they say, why didn't you take the right actions? And when you get stuck in just that mentality, we call that the action trap. And it's a trap in which micromanagement thrives because you're focused on what people need to do in order for you to get the results that you need. And so you have to constantly check in on their actions. And, you know, when I say actions, the solutions that leaders will sometimes throw at not achieving their results are things like a reorganization of the company structure, or let's hire and fire a group of people, or let's implement a new process improvement plan, or let's implement new technology. These are all action-based solutions. And that's pretty short-sighted, because what we believe about culture is that it's about how people think and act. It's not just how they act. And a lot of leaders miss the part about how people think and what drives all of our actions. I mean, what drove you to start this podcast? You know, what drove you to be a human capital specialist? What drove me to accept the email request that you sent me to be on this podcast? It's a set of beliefs that we have. It's our mindset, right? You care about people, I'm assuming, and that's something that drove you to want to be in this profession. And I say that because that's my belief too. That's why I'm doing it, right? I'm making an assumption about you, but it is also my belief that a lot of people in this field hold that mindset about wanting to improve the lives of people, the way that they work. So when we focus on the mindset, the beliefs, the thinking is what drives people's action. And if you can transform their thinking, then they take proactive action the way that you need them to. Then you really start to create sustained behavioral change, because it's not about the behavior changing, it's about the mindset that then evokes the kind of behavior you want to see. Now, the key to the results pyramid, so those are the top three layers, right? Results created by actions, created by beliefs. What forms our beliefs, and this is true for all people, this isn't just in the workplace, but it's experiences. The experiences we have at home with our family and our communities, with our colleagues, all of the experiences that we're having every day, all day long, lead to beliefs about the work we're doing, about each other, about the importance of our value in the organization. Those beliefs drive our actions, and those actions get results. So if you want to drive results, you need to focus on those intentional experiences you can create to inform the beliefs that people hold, what they think, and that will drive their actions, and that will get results. And that's what culture is.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I do have a question on that particular line. Let's say, now it's every organization is global. It's a global context now, right? It's not particular nation, it's not particular region, it's not particular content, it's a global context now. Let's imagine I'm working in Sri Lanka and I'm moving to US on the same company. How does the culture fit comes there? Now, how does the experience come there? How the beliefs comes there? How that the whole element of actions comes there? How do I need to fit in? How the existing culture in that particular part of the country how do I absorb that? How do I adapt that? How's the take on that?
Great question. And that speaks to a word that you'll see a lot in culture research, which is enculturability. It's the ability to adapt to the culture that you are a part of. And there's always been in global organizations this back and forth between country culture and organizational culture. And so the give and take of which is more dominant, research actually shows that it is the company culture that dominates when someone has to make a decision about how to show up, that the underlying beliefs tend to be that you should show up the way that the company wants you to show up, not necessarily the way that the country you grew up in would expect you to show up. And so you see company culture dominate country culture oftentimes in globalized organizations, which is interesting. There are some organizations who are very conscious of that, and they take proactive measures to allow for there to be diversity of culture based on country. And that's a part of the whole diversity, equity, and inclusion dynamic, that, how can we be inclusive of all different kinds of styles? But the research actually surprised me when I saw that.
Wow. That's truly amazing, because I think that everybody works towards it. We're talking about culture, and I love the fact that you putting a couple of ping pong tables and a pool tables, have some PlayStation around, and we think we create cultures. And again, some organized leaders look out another country culture, another country set of organization. They're trying to bring the same thing here, and they start failing and falling apart simply because it doesn't fit. So that's what I really want to get in. So Jessica, here's the topic. Here's the main point I want to come in. Toxic culture. Does it really exist? If yes, how it is created?
Oh, it absolutely exists. I can tell you from firsthand experience that it exists. I've been in a couple of them. And, it's what may be a toxic culture to one person is a thriving culture to another person. So it's very personal. But that's because if you revisit that results pyramid, all of us bring a set of beliefs to the workplace before we even show up on day one, beliefs that were created through our experiences in childhood and early adult development and previous roles, et cetera. So I may have a belief about what toxic means to me, and you may have a different belief. And that's one of the reasons that culture partners were culture agnostic, meaning we're not trying to get every company to be more innovative or more agile or more compliant, right? I mean, every company has to have the culture that's going to help them drive the results that they want. And for some companies, that means more innovation. For some companies, that means less innovation, because there's a lot of risk with innovation. And depending on the results they're trying to achieve, we need to be flexible. Toxic workplace culture, if I had to, define it very simply, it's a place in which your mental health is suffering because of the nature of the way people think and act around you. And so if your mental health is suffering and you are struggling on a day-to-day basis, I mean, I remember this is maybe 12, 13 years ago, I was in a job where on Tuesdays we had our team meeting and I had my one-on-one with my manager, and I cried every Tuesday without fail because of how toxic it felt to me. That was not a great fit. That was a toxic workplace culture. Now, I bet I could name people on that team who, if you called them and asked them about it, they would have said it was great. It was fantastic, and so it's a very personal decision. Advice I would give to people in a toxic workplace culture is move on. If you have the ability and you have the privilege to look into the other options, you have to, because your mental health is more important than loyalty to some corporate organization.
So Jessica, here's my take. Now, for the previous question, I understand the result pyramid. Leaders need to play a vital role in developing cultures in organization. But the culture is developed by the people who's working in. Now, then how does a toxic element comes in? Who creates it? Is the leader or the people?
It's not one or the other, right? Culture is leader led, but you make a great point. If I am an employee, I have a conversation with a peer of mine, that's an experience that's going to lead to a belief, that's going to lead to me taking an action. And the leader is nowhere to be found in that transaction. And yet culture is getting crafted. It's being shaped in that moment. So the leadership responsibility is in weeding out those toxic culture experiences. And, we have a leader, Joe Terry, the CEO of Culture Partners, who feels very strongly in when making decisions about the organization and the talent on the team, that the people that get to be on this team are the people who live and breathe the cultural beliefs that we want to nurture. And if people aren't aligned with the cultural beliefs that we're nurturing, it's really up to the leader to say, this isn't the right place for you. And if it's not the right place for them, then you're eliminating potential negative experiences for the people for whom this is the right place, right? And that's the tricky role of the leader, is not just making decisions based on who's a high performer, but who's a high performer and who's doing it the way that we want to nurture culture to be.
Absolutely does make sense. And you picked up another point. Even though we have toxic culture, there are people who are high performers, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is the hardest challenge for a leader, is to say you're an A performer and yet we need to part ways, because the way that you think and act is creating negative experiences for those around you. And over the long term, I mean, leaders need to be playing the long game, right? And over the long term, that high performer may bring in a great amount of revenue in one quarter or the next quarter, right? Or even for the next year, but the amount of people you might lose that collectively as a team can impact the larger growth of the organization, the company will suffer.
So, in that note, how does emotional intelligence can play a role in this particular? Even though we have a toxic culture, but the person is high performing, is any role emotional intelligence can play here?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting that self-awareness is to have self-awareness is one of the greatest superpowers in the business world, in my opinion, because it allows you to engage with people from an objective place rather than just from your own ego, right? It allows you to receive feedback and to exchange feedback in a really empowering and powerful way. That if you don't have emotional intelligence, those things are harder to do. Receiving feedback it can feel like an attack. If you don't have emotional intelligence, you get defensive, you start to counterattack. The reaction to feedback isn't thank you for the feedback, but it's rather, well, wait a minute, you didn't yada yada. And now you start to create that toxicity. And so having high emotional intelligence is going to go a long way towards creating a positive culture. But that is to say, I don't believe in the idea of culture fit. That I think is an error for leaders to say, we want people like this because they will fit in.
Yeah.
That creates a kind of toxic dynamic in and of itself, right? We think much more about purpose fit. What my purpose is to do X, like we talked earlier. Your purpose is to improve the lives of people in the workplace, right? And I can do that here in this company because it fits with the purpose of the company, and I can fulfill my larger goals, the higher reason that I'm on this planet at this company.
Brilliant. I think with my experience, one of the puzzle with most of the organization and the employers, they don't know the purpose.
Right.
So they're not going to get the culture align with them because they don't know the purpose. So thank you very much for sharing that. As we talk about performance, my next question for you is, how can we create a culture that elevates people's performance?
That's a great question. So if at the foundation of the results pyramid is experiences, and the best experiences are the most powerful ones, let's say the ones where you should start, because there are tens of thousands of experiences happening every day, right? If I send you a text message right now, you're going to have an experience. Yeah. If I send you an email, this conversation, this is an experience. And in fact, this conversation is like 30 experiences. The experience of your reaction to my answer, the experience of the next question, the experience of how you're going to wrap it up once we stop recording and say, that went great, or I don't know if that was that good, right? These are all experiences. So the three simplest to start with are feedback, recognition, and storytelling. If you are exchanging feedback, if you're telling stories and you are recognizing people for their contributions, all the while tying those moments, the moments of feedback, to the results you're trying to achieve, the cultural beliefs you're trying to develop, real examples of how they've lived those or not. Those are really powerful experiences in driving culture in the right direction. I would start there.
Brilliant. So I'm really curious. You do talk about culture equation. does that culture equation can really eliminate toxic environment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the culture equation is purpose plus strategy to the culture powered by culture equals results, right? So we start with purpose with all of our clients. If many clients these days do have a purpose, but some of them need to be brushed up, right? If your purpose statement is longer than 6 words, no one's going to remember it, and it's going to be really hard to live and breathe that. So we simplify, clarify the purpose. Then we do need to talk about strategy. How are you going to achieve that purpose? What is the strategic anchors on which you're driving your business forward? And how are you going to measure success? Key results are something that we feel very passionately about. The top of the results pyramid is results. So we need to know what results you want to achieve, and that happens in the strategy. But neither of those things are going to go very far if they're not powered by culture, because your purpose, excuse me,
bless you,
because your purpose is your why, your strategy is your how, and your culture is the way you get results. So then we reverse engineer the cultural beliefs that are going to be required, the beliefs to get the actions, to achieve the strategy, to get the results that are all about your purpose. And, I'm interviewing CEOs every day about what their culture equation is and trying to do research around what's working and what's not and how business is evolving. And I ask them the question, how do you get people to care about their job? And almost all of them say that when they understand how their work is going to help contribute to improving the lives of another, then they really care. And that's really about service. And it's about having a mentality that it's not about me, it's about the other. And it's about how I can get out of myself and what I need, right? And instead contribute to something that's bigger than me. And I think that's real purpose fit.
Can I put that as a word, compassion, over there?
Absolutely. I mean, I would even go so far as to say the word love. We talk to our clients about designing experiences from the heart, from a place of love, of service. It's servant leadership. I mean, this is not new. I'm just going as far as being willing to say the word love, which people get so uncomfortable with because they think it's romantic love or familial love. It's not that. It's agape love. It's the kind of love where you're willing the good of another. And that's playing the long game in business, which the really powerful organizations are playing the long game.
Yeah. So Jessica, thank you very much for picking it up. I'm just really directing you into another element. You talked about 3-element feedback. We talked about then recognition and storytelling. And again, we talked about the purpose, the strategy, how it comes. Now, for us to have this culture setting it up, where can psychological safety comes or fits in this particular whole process?
It's interesting. So many of our clients are asking about psychological safety. And the psychological safety gets created in a place where you're having experiences that reinforce that speaking up, failing fast can be accepted as okay, right? And so here's an interesting dynamic. In order for companies to innovate, there has to be the psychological safety to do so, right? Because if innovation takes risk, it takes failing fast, it takes placing a bet and not always getting it right. That's the only way that we innovate. We can't get it right all the time. And so the experiences that need to be created are that it's okay to fail. And that when you fail, you're able to adjust, you get the feedback, you create a new dynamic. And so that requires leaders to create psychological safety in the minds of the employees, that there is safety in failing fast and speaking up. However, research that I just saw coming out of Stanford, we do research with Stanford, and one of the things that they're working on without us is that the companies that have the lowest psychological safety are actually, they perpetuate a dynamic of low psychological, the companies that have low psychological safety actually have a lot of innovation because leaders haven't figured that out necessarily. And so they are innovating all the time. And yet when something fails, which it happens all the time. And
why did you do it? Why did you do it?
Right. there's a lack of safety there. And so it takes a certain personality to be able to continue to innovate and thrive in those workplaces. And you see a lot of high turnover. So innovation with retention requires psychological safety, interestingly. And that's all about the experiences that leaders create that lead to the belief about I'm safe or I am not safe.
Again, connecting to your pyramid.
Exactly. I mean, the pyramid is really at the heart of, it's not some cool work pyramid. Yeah. This is how humanity works. It's the nature of human psychology.
Brilliant. So as we're coming to end our conversation, before I take a takeaway from you, I'm really curious. We're talking about artificial intelligence. This is AI. It's like really trending topic. What's the future with culture and artificial intelligence?
Oh, such a great question. I've been asking the people that I interview about that. And I just had the opportunity to interview someone at IBM who, as you know, they announced that they were going to pause on hiring the 7,500 positions because they were going to have AI step in and do those roles. And I asked what the experience was. That is an experience, right? The headline. Yeah. What is the belief that is being created? And at this point, because it's still so new, this leader told me that it's all over the map. You know, there are some people who are terrified. Is that going to take my job? Are we going to be okay? And there are other people who are thrilled. They're so excited. They think that they're on the cutting edge. They want to be a part of the implementation. And so, like all people, right, it runs the gamut.
Yeah.
My personal belief, I mean, this is not, you know, what do I know? If I had a crystal ball, I'd probably be a billionaire, right? But my personal belief is that history repeats itself. And in the course of history, the workplace has had a series of massive revolutions that were supposedly going to change the world forever. And they did, right? The agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, the technological revolution. This is the AI revolution. And we made it through the other ones, you know, so I'm hoping we're going to make it through this one too.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Brilliant. So Jessica, thank you very much for giving those insights. As we come to end our conversation, I always ask my guests, give me a golden nugget for my listeners. What's the golden nugget you're going to give in terms of culture and the whole toxic element?
The golden nugget. I would say that, you know, we talked briefly about designing experiences from a place of love, from the heart. And when you do that, you get out of the ego, out of the self, and you serve those around you. That can feel really dangerous in the workplace because of the nature of culture the way that it is right now. And the reality is when you have this abundance mindset, it will come back around, you know, it can really transform not just your workplace, but you as a person and your family. And there's a compounding effect of that. When you are surrounded by people who are acting in that way, it starts to create this spiral upwards, you know, and I think that's a really powerful risk to take and also create psychological safety. So I would encourage your listeners to take a chance, you know, take a chance on love.
There you go. Take a chance on love. That's what Jessica just trying to wrap it up. So that's the time that we have, ladies and gentlemen. My key takeaway is the pyramid equation. And the three important things Jessica shared is feedback, recognition, and the most important thing is how do you really get your team work together? This is what I got. I hope our listeners got plenty of key takeaways. My special thanks to Jessica Kriegel, Chief Scientist of Workplace Culture and the Culture Partner. Of course, you can get connected to Jessica through her LinkedIn. Just follow her. She puts lovely content and it's very attractive. She gives very crystal clear and it's very short. So that's very easy to remember. If you want to log on, explore what more Jessica does, you can log on to www.jessicakriegel.com. All the links will be available in the podcast note. With that, Jessica, thank you very much for your valuable time to inspire people to live a meaningful life.
Thank you so much. And if I could add just one more thing,
Please.
We have some takeaways for your listeners at podcast.culture.io. So if they go to that website, they can get some research and some toolkits.
I'm going to take that also. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this podcast of EI Cafe with Azim. We sure do hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, please do reach out. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to the show that is available on all major podcast platforms so you're notified when a new episode is posted. Please rate, review, and leave a comment and share it with your friends. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you're leaving with some great insights that can help you in your daily life. Follow Azim on social media and do write to us on topics and experts you'd like to hear from, and we will try to get them on board. Goodbye for now, until we meet again on another episode of EI Cafe with Azim.